Please join us in a time of prayer and pledges to our flag. Charles?
Thank you. Our Heavenly Father, we ask that you look after our brother and fellow trustee who's not been able to be with us today, and also include Holly in that when you are looking after some of our infirm people. Guide and direct our actions today that they may be acceptable and correct in the path that you would have us follow. Help us take care of the staff and the students and the faculty here at this great institution that we strive to save, to serve, pardon me. Be with us in our deliberations, guide and direct our every thought, word, and action. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. James?
Call me to pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please follow me in honoring the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you so much. First agenda item is consider approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of the board from July 23rd. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve is published.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Next item is an opportunity for members of the public to suggest addition of topics for discussion or to address topics of interest, and presentation of 3 minutes or less. Someone would like to come and speak to us today. Thank you. And I forgot your name from last week.
Dennis Faulkner. Thank you very much.
Sir.
I appreciate the time, and I appreciate everybody's service here on this board of trustees. So I'm an advocate for taxpayers in the area. I'm a precinct committeeman in Harker Heights. I advocate in several areas, election integrity, but property taxation has become a particular interest to me over the last year or two. Mostly because I think most people are really very unfamiliar with the process of how it's done and kind of what it's comprised of. But we all most get those bills that come in, and sometimes they're quite shocking. In sitting through the meeting last week, I felt compelled to come and give a different perspective in my attendance of not just this meeting, but many of the other taxing entities in the county. It is very typical for those to characterize these increases in our taxes in terms of percentages that tend to make them seem very small. As a retired infantryman, I like things very simple. That tends to be the best way to sort of understand them. And to me, this is quite simple. I compare what I paid in my property taxes last year to what is now being proposed I'm going to pay this year. And in that percentage, if you look county-wide, it's nearly 20%. And this entity is one of those as well. The current proposed tax rate, and excuse me for not being here earlier, but I believe the proposed tax rate was 0.0883 was the proposal, which I was glad to see that get corrected from last week on the rate that was quite a bit higher. That rate is actually going to be a 18% increase from last year, at least for me on my taxes. And I think part of the reason why some may not be getting visibility of this is, quite frankly, there's a number of folks on this board, you're not seeing those in a normal way for a lot of reasons and a lot of good reasons. There are lots of exemptions for taxpayers that they won't see those come through to them personally. But I am here to remind you, to let you know, those that will be paying taxes, that's the rate that's going to happen. What you have said right now will be nearly a 20% increase in their taxes. And so I would ask this entity, as well as all the others in the county, I think we need to think very hard about that. I think that's a very large increase in 1 year to have happen, however it has occurred. And I think that we need to be prudent. We probably need to look a little deeper at ways that we can probably bring that down some, and in understanding that dynamic is probably not going to get better in the forthcoming years. So I think we need to start thinking a little more in terms of fiscal restraint and ways to be able to bring that cost down. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir, for your courteous explanation and expression. Next item is the Chancellor's report. Nothing to tell us. Okay, thank you. Item 5, discuss and consider approval of the July 24th interim financial statement and report. Mr. Barton, I think you'll be joined by Ms. Jordan. Oh, it's the next item. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, so on your first page, the thing that I think you need to pay attention to is about the middle of the page, the change in the deferred revenue from this year to last year. Last year it was 5.6 million. This year it's 7.2 in your deferred revenue. So that's a positive sign. That's a positive thing to look at. I've highlighted some other line items there related to your pensions. I never speak about those, but this time of the year I will be making adjustments to those. In the middle of the page, you'll see net pension liability. It's going to increase about $1 million. That's a liability that I'm 99% sure that we will never have to cover that liability. So these are some of those GASB entries you've heard us talk about in the past. This is one of them. And also with these entries that they will affect your bottom line. Right now it's 72,000. So on the next page, the only really change from last month to this month is some additional expenditures related to the planetarium and ADA. So, other than that, the reasons for the changes are noted there. So, with your investments, no changes in July with your investments. Rates are starting to come down, and we're looking at longer term stuff. So, any questions on those?
Any questions?
I just got a question for clarification, not being an accountant, but on the first page, the cash equivalents,
Mhm.
they got a negative 14 million plus.
Right.
And then 2 lines down, other long-term investments, that same number appears. Pretty muchly so. Is that a wash?
That's what, yes.
That's a wash. That's what I thought. Just wanted to make sure I understood what I was looking at. And then overall, we're down just about $1 million from last year.
In which line item?
On the
Overall?
bottom line.
All
Yeah.
right. It's versus last year, we're about 4 million better. Now for the year, where it's like 3.6, but we're much better than last year. And some of that 3.6 million will be covered when we start capitalizing assets. When we go through the audit process, like we'll be able to pull some of that ADA stuff out and some of the planetarium and whatever big capital projects they've worked on during the year. We'll be able to pull those out of your bottom line and start depreciating those over the next 10 or 20 years. There'll be an expense. It'll just be spread out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Question?
You mentioned something about Gatsby.
GASB,
Yeah.
Governmental Accounting Standards Board.
Mhm.
These are required entries.
We talked about it for a number of years,
Right.
expecting a great expense. What's changed?
Well, I didn't read the actuary report. What happens is the state has an actuary report done every year. And it's for all state agencies that participate in either TRS or ERS. This one that I'm showing you here is TRS. And they show whatever state agency, what their proportion of the liability should be. And I really thought that would go down because over the past 2 or 3 years, we've increased the employer and employee contribution rate. And the other big factor in all this is investments. They take their available funds and they invest them. And that rate's gone up. So I'm a little curious why our liability went up.
Would it be useful in these deliberations to take a look at both, since wages are one of our biggest expenses or the biggest expense? And we got into an interesting discussion when we were trying to set tuition rates. Would it be useful to index those to something? Would that help you in your process?
No, I don't think. I think when it comes to tuition, we have to look at where we are and what our enrollments are and what our financial position is at that time. I think it's just going to be a year-by-year case where we have to look at where we are. I don't know that you could index it to any kind of government or education standard.
That way everybody would have an idea of, they have a pretty good feel for what inflation is, even though the numbers that we get are wrong. At least it would be a starting place where everybody could take a look and know what kind of increases we're probably looking at.
Yep, it could be. It's a factor we need to look at.
And my second question is there a way for us to lend our reserves to the foundation so they can do our investing for us? They don't operate under the same rules. In another life,
I don't think
we are able to separate public funds from private funds, and therefore they let us withdraw from the government agency that was handling it, and we took it to a local bank, and their trust department tripled what we were making out of it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think the same question can be asked about TRS and ERS. I think they're allowed to do a lot more than we are also.
Might have to talk to the legislature about that.
We have.
Anybody else? Any other questions, comments about the financial report? Is there a motion to approve? Motion been made and second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much. Now, Doug, we have item 6. Holly's going to introduce that for us.
Good afternoon. I had asked Mr. Barton if I could present in front of his budget line item to talk to you about our compensation schedules. And last week, I was very pleasantly surprised by the direction that our conversation went in regards to our pay scales. I have worked with the administration, and we have a new proposal, and then that is, our request is captured in Mr. Barton's budget that he will share right after me. And if you would, there's a packet, there's a 2-page document in your packet. It's right behind the budget information. Okay, all right. We are requesting an increase to our 4 pay scales. And by applying an increase to the pay scales, that benefits new hires and current employees. So our current employees would stay at their current step. The pay scale that they are on would increase. As I mentioned, I've got 4 pay scales, and I'd like to walk you through those changes for each one. Okay, let's start with our faculty. We have a number of the full-time faculty here with us today, and the pay scale that they are on is set on it's a 9-month pay scale. So the majority of our faculty are 9-month faculty, and these are the individuals that teach a set number of courses, and they are subject matter experts in those disciplines. Currently, we have 142 full-time faculty, and 94 of those are 9-month. So you're looking at a big percentage. But we also have 10.5, 11, and 12-month faculty, and they support the demands of unique situations in their programs. And we have 3 10.5-month faculty, 8 11-month faculty, and 37 12-month faculty. And all but one of our department chairs is a 12-month faculty. Our faculty are ranked 25th in the state, and we're requesting an increase of 4% to their pay scale. And keep in mind that the Consumer Price Index for the last 12 months is 2.9, and we'd really like to grant something above the inflation rate. So that would leave us, if we increase that pay scale for a new faculty member, a master's degree faculty member with experience, their rate of pay would be $56,849. And this compares somewhat to the rates that ISD teachers make in this area. And I'm not comparing our faculty positions, so look at the audience, I'm not comparing our faculty positions to an ISD and teacher. The good part is that I've heard, and hopefully they'll back me up, our faculty prefer to teach the college students. And they actually, for a 9-month faculty, they teach 1 month less than an ISD faculty. So our faculty positions are good. That increase will help us attract and retain some more quality faculty members. Keep in mind that our faculty are on, they may be at a higher step than obviously than a brand new faculty member. They would keep those steps. And as I said, it will help us with our recruiting. Next, I'd like to jump to the adjunct scale. The adjunct scale is one where we pay our instructors to teach a course. And that scale is based on the adjunct's degree and the number of students in the class. The most common adjunct rate is at the master's level. A large majority of our faculty have a master's degree or higher. And then most of our classes have at least 8 students in them. So that common rate for a master's with at least 8 students, that common adjunct rate is $2,000. And that scale was last updated in 2021. Adjunct pay is ranked 33rd in the state. We have 400 adjuncts, and a lot of our adjuncts teach 2 courses every semester. We are also requesting a 4% increase to their scale. And for that common course, that rate would increase to $2,080. Okay. All right. So the third pay scale that we are proposing changes to is our hourly pay scale. And this pay scale is a grade and step scale, much like you've seen in the military or at other community colleges or cities. Our hourly pay scale has 8 pay grades and 30 steps, and we have a wide variety of positions that fall under that hourly pay scale. We've got custodians, groundskeepers, multiple student support positions, administrative support, police positions. They're all paid off of this scale. The jobs are placed on the scale based on the job's complexity and the specific skills that are required. We have 340 full and part-time positions. 53 of those positions are at our lowest pay, are on the lowest pay scale. And that's the one that we've talked about pretty frequently that starts at $9.43. We have 26 of those 53 employees that are actually making that $9.43. So not all of the employees in that one pay scale are at that low rate of $9.43. And that's because they've been here with us a while and they've received a step increase over the years. Okay. The starting salary, though, is still a significant concern for our hourly employees, because what happens is we have an hourly employee that starts with us, stays for many years, then retires. They're making much higher than the $9.43 when they separate, but then to replace that position, we start the new person at $9.43. So that's why in a lot of these conversations, we've talked about that starting rate, because it hinders our ability to attract and retain some of those quality employees. We are requesting a 12% increase to that hourly pay scale. And that would grant over $1 an hour for each of those pay categories, those 8 pay categories. That would make our lowest starting rate to be $10.56. And, as I've expressed before, turnover has been high with this group of employees, and we really believe that this 12% increase will help us attract and retain new employees. Okay. The next pay scale is a salary pay scale. This is similar to the hourly pay scale, and it's a grade and step scale. We have 11 pay grades and it can go all the way down to 30 steps. All positions in the salary pay scale require a degree and related work experience. Jobs are categorized based on responsibility and complexity of the job. And all the jobs on the scale may meet that exempt duties test, and most are not eligible for overtime compensation. And we've had previous conversations about some changes that they made in federal law that disqualified folks for not being eligible for overtime. I won't get into that, but we have 221 salaried positions, and like our hourly pay scale, the positions, they kind of run the gamut. They're all different types of positions in that pay scale. We have advisors, success coaches, IT, and other technical specialist positions, instructional support, management, and then all the leadership positions are on that pay scale. Turnover with this group of employees is especially challenging because we're often looking for a skill set that's hard to find. We hire applicants with, the minimum, in some instances, the minimum skill sets that required, and then we train them. And unfortunately, we don't always get the benefit of that training because those folks leave for higher paying different jobs with the training that we've provided. And we'd really like to hold on to those employees and have them benefit the institution. And that has been that situation has been more frequent with probably your IT and your highly skilled individuals. We are requesting a 4% increase to the salary pay scale, and that would make our lowest starting salary $35,220. Now, if you'll bear with me, I need to walk you through one of the complications that we found, and Dr. Carter alluded to at our last workshop. We have, as I said, the hourly pay scale and the salary pay scale. Well, we have, if we grant the 12% increase and the 4% increase to the salary pay scale, you're going to have some salaried employees that that their starting pay rate is less than the highest end of the hourly pay scale. So we've got some wage compression there. So the recommendation is to take those 11 employees, eliminate the two pay scales, the two salaried pay scales that they're on, move them to different pay scales. So we eliminate that wage compression because your highest starting salary on your hourly pay scale should not be higher than your starting salary on your salary pay scale. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay. No?
Now to address that real quick.
Okay.
Anecdotally, my father-in-law was a service manager at a Ford dealership down in Texas City, Texas. Routinely, his mechanics made more monthly than he did, and he was in charge of the mechanics. So I don't buy that.
Well, and sir, I'm not saying that, and I'm talking about starting salaries.
I am too.
Okay.
Just because you're in a leadership position doesn't mean you make more than the people you're supervising. Okay?
Okay. All right. Well, part of the proposal is to include those 11 employees, adjust their salaries to where we don't have that pay compression issue with the hourly and the salary pay scales. It will mean we will have employees, because they've been here so long and received step increases, that make more than their supervisors. I know I've had that in my area. But that's because they've stayed with us, and got somebody new that didn't make as much. I would also like to mention, and I'm very pleased to report on this because I've seen some news about it, about how other employers, their health insurance has increased and they've had to pass that along to their employees. That's not the case here. Our health insurance, the rates are not increasing, so our employees will not have to come up with more money to pay for their health benefits, which I shared last week are very comprehensive. Okay. So the recommendation that we have is to grant a 4% pay scale increases for our faculty, salaried, and adjuncts, and then 12% to our hourly employees. The total cost with benefits is $2,235,000. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to have these discussions about compensation and look forward to this being an ongoing conversation. I will continue to advocate to increase pay scales and work with the administration to develop a long-term plan. I truly appreciate your support of our employees.
Ms. Jordan, those numbers in your recommendation have been now put into the budget that we're going to look at in just a second.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. What questions do you have? Yes.
I would say that you and your team have done a beautiful job by the book of creating, it's a beautiful plan. Problem is, it's not very dynamic because they didn't plan on the economic situation that we find ourselves in. Would indexing give you a hand? Because this conversation we're having, we probably had last year and we'll probably have every year in the future because we fall behind where the economy happens to be going. So we need to see if we can find a dynamic way to keep up with it, but not to ditch what you've already done.
Right. Well, and sir, as we well know, we had some budget constraints, and so we made decisions not to apply some pay increases. And unfortunately, that's around the same time that the pay rates for the market just exploded. So we definitely are behind. We want to continue these discussions and continue reasonable requests for increases. We realize we do have budget constraints.
Because I have some companies where the starting wage, where we do the training, is $15 an hour, and our turnover is still between 25 and 30%. We can't stop it either. And every time we go sit on these kinds of boards, we face the same issue every year.
Well, and I would say
there's not a good dynamic way that I can see, so we can get ahead of the game and take care of our folks.
Right. Because I was speaking to Mr.
We just need to make more money somehow.
Yeah, Mr. Pierce has mentioned it'd be great to get to $14 an hour. That would be wonderful. That unfortunately, that's a 48% increase.
We can't do it all in 1 year.
Right. So if that's our target, that would be great. We just can't bite all that off into one chunk.
But y'all have done a beautiful job in setting the plan up.
Anyone else? Any other questions?
Just a
comments?
comment. You know that I'm an advocate of us looking at this every year. I think we had gotten behind the curve because we haven't done that. And it's been quite a few years before we've done anything. But so I'm happy that we're moving in the right direction. Of course, I would love to see the hourly waged employees a higher level. But I understand with us, we have to remember too that we just did some reduction in force because of finances. So to move forward at all is a blessing. So I'm really happy about that. When you talk about the scale, will every employee on this, I was going to say this installation, rewind, and this institution receive an increase in salary?
We have the majority, the majority of employees are paid off a pay scale.
Mhm.
And so everybody that's paid off a pay scale would receive an increase. We have a few outliers that are instructional personnel that are set at a flat rate of pay for their instruction. And those individuals, they would stay at that flat rate.
Are they important to the organization? What they contribute is important to us.
Yes.
Then everybody, I would like to see, even if it was a one-time and it was not part of their salary, it was a maybe, I don't know if you can do that legally, a bonus or some type of one-time increase, if that's possible. Just an idea.
Okay.
But if we say that all of our employees are important to us, this is one of the ways that we have of confirming that. So I'd like for us to take a look at that.
Okay.
And my last question, or maybe I get off my soapbox, is every instructor that we have all across wherever we have, what's the word I'm looking for, that we provide services, is every staff member paid from the same pay scale? Will they get an increase?
Everybody, regardless of their location,
Right.
if they're paid off their pay scale, they would get an increase? Is that your
Are
question?
they paid from the same? Are they hired from the same pay scale? Or do you use the same pay scale for every installation?
We have so for instructors, we have the adjunct pay scale. And, that's the one I just went over. It's paid per class.
Mhm.
And then we have a pay scale for
Mhm.
Continental and Navy instructors. And so they're paid
So the
a
answer is
different
no.
rate.
So the answer is no.
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I do have one question. I think you asked most of them have had, but on those, I guess the faculties where they at the 9-month, 10, 12-month, and then not full year, are they paid only for those months, or can they have that option, or do they have that option to be annualized? So they get a X dollars a month for 12 months, even though they were 9.
Well, first, anybody that's beyond a 9-month, we call it 9-month contract. There's a multiplier that gives them a little extra money for teaching, say 10 and a half, 11 or 12 months. But we require, even for that 9-month faculty, we spread out their pay over the 12 months.
Okay.
And quite frankly, we do that because of benefits. I don't want
Right,
to
yeah.
jeopardize the benefits of these employees and have them restart a
Yeah, and
waiting period for
that's
their health
consistent
insurance.
with the ISD that my wife works in. So I wanted just to make sure I'm apples and apples and oranges and oranges.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
I want to thank you, Ms. Jordan, for knuckling down on this and getting down to the bare bones. I'm disappointed we can't start at $12 an hour. Probably Mr. Pierce wants 14. I think that's probably even better, but as a minimum, we're at 10.56, which is better than nothing. I would encourage to look deeper and see what we can do. Of course, depending on how much money we can make. But I think we need to boost that as much as we can at the benefit of some other pay scales if it has to be that way. Because if you don't take care of, like I said before, the groundskeepers and the people who do the scut work, then the camp is going to deteriorate and students are not going to be attracted. So we got to understand we put our money where the most return on investment is going to come in. And if we can keep the lower wage employees at a higher level, I think we need to do that. And I know we can't do it today, but I want to encourage my colleagues to think about that when we discuss this in the very near future.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, and sir, I would like to share, once we have that brand new hourly employee, we have a training period. Once they successfully complete their training period, they definitely will receive a 1-step increase, potentially up to a 2-step increase. So then after, 1 step would be 1082. And then if they happen to qualify for the 2nd step, it would get them to 1110. So we're getting a little closer to that $12 target rate.
What determines the step two?
The
You said
step-
that if they successfully complete the 90 days, they go to one, or whatever, one.
Right.
Well, you said one or two.
Correct.
So who what determines which
Uh,
one?
Well, and first we have, I often have to explain this to new employees. We have a 4-month training period. Instead of the 90-day,
Okay.
we do 120. But for full-time employees, they're eligible for an additional step if they have, say, an advanced degree or more experience in that area. They can potentially go to that step 3. And it differs based on the job, what the requirement is.
But a person with a master's degree is not going to make $10 and with a 1056. So,
Maybe.
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 Yeah, well, yeah,
I might,
just looking for a part-time job, right? Yeah.
Unless you're a groundskeeper.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a bachelor's degree. I can do lawn keeping. But we gave you some options to run for us about $12 and $14 an hour, and you just mentioned 48% increase. And did you put a packet together for us where we could review that? What it would take for us to do that?
No, sir, I didn't. I can.
Part of the timeline we have to be aware of was that we have a budget to approve today, and we kind of put Ms. Jordan and Bart, we put these two people under the gun to come to us today with a budget.
Well, I
which-
understand that, sir. But we were looking for that information also.
Sure.
I mean, I can definitely.
I understand it may be in the future now because we're up against a deadline, but that was something we wanted also. So the review, because the more educated we are, the better decisions we can make for y'all. Okay? And that is most important because I'm not one to waste tax dollars. And I would like to help these employees make a livable wage. 1056. I'm telling you, I hire laborers that make more than 1056 an hour, and unskilled. Okay, they make more than that, and I make it livable. What we're looking for is a solution to get the employees that work at this institution to be able to live comfortably and do their job here, and not have to worry about replacing them 6 months down the road, or even 5 months down the road. I'm a product of the Army in the 80s. President Reagan gave us a sizable 1-year increase in our pay because it had to be done. Okay, because we were bleeding soldiers. Figuratively.
Yeah, well, and I will, we will definitely, put together a plan.
Let me, if I may, sir.
Please.
I appreciate all the discussion. And Ms. Jordan, no one is a greater advocate for the employees at Central Texas College than you are, maybe me. But, and every year, what many of our board members do not know is that every year you presented a request to do something for the employees, but the decision was way above you. Okay, so I want that to be stated. With regard to the work that you've done and the recommendations that you've presented, I think they are balanced and the best that we can do right now. Because to offset, there has to be revenue. And we all know that in order to balance this budget, we're having to go into reserves. And so when we talk about these numbers, we talk about the 48%, we talk about the rates that some of our board members have mentioned, that costs. And so there's another side to that balance sheet that we have to look at. Specifically, how do we increase revenue to cover those costs? Because if we're not able to do that, then we won't be having a conversation about a college, running a college. So thank you for your work. I thank the board for their support, and I'll lose my comments.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else?
Just want to make a comment. This, not about you, Holly, don't panic. Um, it's just another, the marketing department, in order for you to earn a higher salary, I go back to it is all of our responsibility to market this institution. So the money, like Dr. Carter said, if we don't have the money, that means we don't have the students. So it's our responsibility to pursue, educate, speak at different functions, whatever we can do to have more students pay attention to our organization and know what we offer here.
Anyone else? Thank you, Holly. Now you've introduced the opportunity for Mr. Barton to present the budget.
Yes.
Okay, so I won't go over the first 10 or 12 pages. We went through that last time. And the only change from last week to this week is the additional 4% that was added to the hourly salary. And then the salary were stayed at 4%. Other than that, that added about 300,000 to your transfer from reserves. Other than that, there hasn't been any changes, but I can answer any questions anybody might have.
You've got a copy of the budget for this last period of time. Anybody have any additions or questions or comments about the budget that's proposed to you?
Yes, I do.
All right, Chris.
Of course, I was working off the draft budget, which is pretty close to what you're coming up with. But this call attention to my colleagues here. Next to the last page, and read on the draft, obviously. Line item 801625, tuition and projecting $5,219,758. That number had to come from somewhere, and my problem with the budget is we look at each individual line item in the budget, and we're led to believe that we're going to have associates of degree in nursing, salaries and wages, benefits, supplies, materials, services, and other operating expenses, but nowhere does it indicate how many students are going to be in that program. If I know how many students will be in that program, I know how much money we're going to get per student per semester hour, and I can see if that's a winner or a loser. And I'm sure somewhere in here, we've got some programs that are not paying for themselves. And we need to know that. We need to be able to look at that and say, okay, administration, how many nurses are you going to produce this year and in what quantity? And if it's worth it, let's do that. If it's not worth it, let's look for an alternative program, an alternative mission, because we're teaching a lot of classes to a lot of students, but I don't know how many. There's got to be an answer to that somewhere. And I know it can't be in this budget. I'm not asking in this budget, but I'm asking the administration to bite the bullet and let's find out where we are and how can we better project how we spend our money.
If I can speak to the program piece really quick, because you bring up a really good point. And at the beginning of the year, that was something that we focused on, was our program portfolio. And we pulled reports, and I'll let Dr. Garrett speak to that. We pulled reports to see how many completers we had in those programs, how many students we had enrolled in those programs, and whether or not they made sense. And then we added some programs. So if you could just give a real high-level overview. I know I'm putting you on the spot, Dr. Garrett.
I'm trying to recall everything. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for bringing that up. And I gave a short report to Ms. Coley at her request several months ago also. And she requested that we continue at each CRC meeting after that to bring forward what was discussed at that CRC meeting. The next CRC meeting is September 27th. So in probably more than likely the October workshop, I'll bring forward what was discussed at that meeting with the Curriculum Review Committee is what that committee is. But we reviewed all of the programs earlier this year, and we looked at some possibilities for sunset. And in the big scheme of things, we saw that all of them at the bottom line were covering their costs.
Okay.
We really looked hard at two of them, and it was not deniable that they were covering their costs. So our faculty have done a good job. Our departments have done a good job in managing their budgets. And I believe that the work we did to review those programs was accurate. Now, moving forward, we'll continue to monitor them, but I've also had meetings with each department chair, and they have plans for additional programs. And a lot of them have brought those forth that will go through the curriculum review committee in September. Some are still in the works. So there's a constant review of what we're doing on the instructional side. And I'll be happy to turn that over to Dr. Clunas as we move forward.
We would just like to know where we are.
Yeah, and I can assure you that we did evaluate every program.
Good question, good answers.
Very
Thank
good,
you.
very good.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm not finished.
Oh. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Why am I not surprised?
Well, you're not surprised. Again, on the second page, this is the draft again. Line item 92000002, building maintenance and capital outlay, $2,050,250. And I know a lot of this is planned upgrades, and some of it is going to have to come back to us specifically for approval during the year. I just want to remind everybody that hard number may or may not actually happen. And with inflation, it may be more. So when we get to the point where they come back to us and Mr. Gonzalez says, I need a new chiller or whatever, remember, this number is not absolute. So
That's the nature of a budget.
that's the nature of the budget. So don't get upset if we have to make some adjustments later on. Okay? It's just one of those things that happens in the real world.
Keep going.
And I'm not lecturing, but I'm just saying that some people get blinders on when they see those numbers, and I don't want you to do that. The last item is transfer from reserves, and we were planning on $6,500,000, but it's a little bit more than that. And I understand that has to be because of the pay raises that we're going to approve today. That's a big chunk of change, and just remind everybody that unless we get more students, one of these days, we're not going to have a balance to draw from. So we've got to do whatever we can to make this campus attractive, to make the staff as professional as possible, to attract as many students as possible. And unfortunately, a lot of students slip their hands from our own high schools here, and I don't know how to solve that problem. I know we've had scouts out, and we've had people out beating the bushes, but we got to say good things about our college, and we need good press, and we need everybody to be pulling the same direction all the time. That's all I'm going to say on that. Thank you, sir.
I do recall in the early stages of this discussion about having to draw from the reserve, one of our distinguished colleagues at this dais said, let's don't just nibble at it. If we have to take money out of reserve, let's make sure we do it enough to cover our expenses. Thank you, sir, for that observation. Anyone else? Is there a motion to approve the budget?
Motion to approve the budget is presented.
Anybody not afraid to second it?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jackson. Now, any other discussion, questions that you have before we vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Thank you, Mr. Burke. Now, Mr. Gonzalez, you have a presentation for us.
Good afternoon, members of the board. CTC administration recommends approval. This should be the 50K list, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I just want to make sure because I heard presentation. CTC administration recommends approval of the 50K list for fiscal year 24-25. If you remember in the board workshop, the 50K list authorizes administration to issue blanket purchase orders to vendors on the list of goods and services for purchases of $50,000 or more in aggregate during the fiscal year beginning September 1, 2024. Sorry, the allergies kicked in. I started losing my voice. Remember, all vendors on the 50K list are part of a purchasing cooperative or under a voter-approved contract or utility service and were procured in accordance with Texas statutory law. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
We had that list presented to us last week. Any question? Is there a motion to approve this? Motion been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Next item.
The next item is the annual report of interlocal cooperatives. I do this every year, and essentially what we have here is 10 entities that we're part of. Of the 10, only one, the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts, were required to pay their fee every year in order to stay in good standing with Texas and take advantage of the different cooperatives that they have under them. And so that is the list. I'm happy to answer any questions. It's not an actionable item. It's just me reporting out every year on this.
Questions about this item?
Motion to approve.
Okay, it doesn't require, it's just information. Okay, thank you. All right, next item.
Yes, sir. The next item is the sponsorships. And as I explained last week at the board workshop, you have the list provided of the sponsorships for the 24-25 fiscal year. There are total requests for approval of 58,900. I'm not going to go through the list, but I'm happy to answer any questions in the event you won't like me. And I'm sorry, and the CTC administration recommends sponsorship awards to the following organizations contingent upon board's approval for the 24-25 annual budget. And so this is the list.
Questions? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion been made. Seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. You have another.
Yes, sir. A few more to go.
You have several others.
The next item is to exercise option year 2 of the Impact Fire Services contract. The recommendation is approval to exercise the second option year of the Impact Fire Services contract with and not to exceed amount of $250,000.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Motion been made and seconded. Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. One more.
One more. I promise I'm not trying to spend all the colleges. So the last item I have is a recommendation to award a contract to Pfluger Architectural Firm for an initial base term of 1 year beginning September 1, 2024, with 4 one-year renewal options not to exceed 5 years and not to exceed $750K per year. And we will bring that every year to you for approval.
Questions? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion been made and
Second.
seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Murphy, you have some items for us.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Chancellor, board members. This afternoon, CTC administration recommends approval to renew the above insurance policies for option year 3 with Alliant. That's fiduciary liability, airport liability, aviation hull liability, law enforcement liability, and terrorism coverage in the amount of $167,966.12 from September 1st, 2024 to August 31, 2025.
This is option year 3. How many option years are there?
5, sir.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next item, sir.
Next item is to approve option year 3 with Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services for international coverage, general educators liability, legal liability, and educators liability, crime insurance, automobile insurance, pollution liability, active shooter coverage, and workers' compensation in the amount of $503,732.28 for the 2024-2025 academic year or school year.
Is there a motion to approve?
Were our trustees involved in their legal liability?
They
In
are
that one, or
covered
is
under
that
the
in the next
fiduciary.
one?
Yes, under the fiduciary liability. They're covered, you guys are covered under the fiduciary liability.
Any other
I was
questions?
wondering about that.
Did I hear a motion to approve?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The third item
And
is insurance.
Final one is for the approval of insurance with BKCW for the first layer of property Evaluation with travelers insurance in the amount of $1,115,929. The second layer of property insurance valued at $100 million with Amwins Global in the amount of $398,582, and gun range coverage in the amount of $5,140.60 for the 2024-25 year.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We've talked in this meeting and several meetings about ways to increase our income. Maybe we should go in the insurance business. Or maybe not. Dr. Carter has requested approval of her travel schedule. We had a conversation about that at the workshop. Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next item is for the board members to recommend any topics for upcoming agenda items. It's information only, but opportunity to put something on the list. James?
Just what I was asking for.
Rex?
I think we're having a meeting on the 3rd of September. I don't see.
I've got that down on my notes for you.
Okay.
Charles? Eric?
Not topic for discussion, but I missed the opportunity at the workshop, but I wanted to compliment Dean Lyles on the graduation ceremony and how he handled everything. I thought it was really, I see you very serious, all business, but you made the students feel comfortable. You made us feel comfortable. It was a very nice event, and thank you for taking the lead. I didn't want to miss it today.
Thank you, Brent. Under announcements of time and location, we will have the public hearing on the 3rd of September, next Tuesday at 1 p.m. In addition, board workshop for September is on the 17th at 1, and the board meeting on the 24th at 1. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.